play on the field, the courts, and the ice is just one part of sports. Behind every game are the people hard at work so we can enjoy the action. They're the owners, administrators, agents, broadcasters, and promoters who bring the games to life. Meet them when you go behind the game with Patrick Klinger and Bill Robertson. Welcome to Behind the Game. I'm Patrick Klinger, president of Agile Marketing Partners. Our regular co-host Bill Robertson is not with us today. He's tending to his duties as USHL commissioner. We've got a really special show today. We're joined today by a man who is an international soccer star, a community leader, a man that I admire greatly, a person who has impacted literally thousands of lives throughout St. Paul, Minnesota, and the Twin Cities. Tony Sanneh, welcome to Behind the Game.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. We've been friends for a long time, but it's the first time we've had the pleasure of having you on the show.
I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Hey, let's start and talk a little bit about your legendary soccer career. How does a young man who grows up in the land of 10,000 lakes, not exactly known as a hotbed of soccer, become an international soccer star?
Well, you know, my dad was from West Africa, so I went to visit him when I was early, and that's where I picked up the game. But then I really didn't play, and then started playing at the Park and Recs, and really had a group of 10 friends that I grew up with that we all just loved it, lived it, and little luck, was able to go on to college, Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and followed my passion and my dream. And I would say I just had a support from the community, and I played all sports, but really having a good network of young people that love to do what I do is what helped me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned that you played all sports. So you tried baseball and football,
Mm-hmm.
basketball, all those things, but then decided to lock in on soccer?
Yeah, you know, I tried everything, but even as high school, you know, I was a captain of the tennis team and an all-state basketball player. And I think that helped my soccer game because it made me more well-rounded. But who can not fall in love with the beautiful game, right? And so it stole my heart, and it's always been a part of my soul, and it was always my true passion.
You know, soccer, Tony, took you to the highest levels. You played in Europe, you played professionally here as well. But again, soccer wasn't necessarily a big sport in this country at the time, and certainly wasn't necessarily a big sport here in Minnesota. Did you ever feel like you were more famous overseas than you were right here in your hometown?
Well, definitely. You know, I played 6 years of my career in Germany, which was kind of nice. You know, when you're a professional athlete, you know, people say athletes change, and really the people around them change. So you start to expect what people do, and so playing in Germany in the World Cup, where you know my coach would tell me what I had for dinner. You know, coming back to Minnesota in the off season, you know, you would wait 30 minutes to get a reservation, which was different. But you know, it kept me grounded and down to earth, and it also kept this as home, right? I could always be myself coming back to Minnesota, and it was just home.
Minnesota has really seen an explosion in popularity in soccer. You know, obviously Minnesota United is doing extraordinarily well, selling out. It seems that more and more kids are playing. As a Minnesota soccer pioneer, it must be pretty exciting for you to see the growth of the game. And where do you think it's headed?
You know, and I'm not trying to argue against anyone in a hockey state, but I would think it will become one of the big four, you know, pretty soon. You know, I think with social media and the internet and access to games everywhere, it's easy to learn about it. And all sports are awesome, but when you can really understand, and they call it a beautiful game for a reason, as more people understand it, more people love it. And so I think it's here to stay. I think it's growing. You know, even in Europe now, they're starting to watch our games, and I know American families that get up on the weekends to have breakfast and watch the Premier League together. So it's catching on, and it's a global game. And I think now more than ever, with the way information is transferred, we want to be connected not just in our city but all over the world. And this game connects us.
And how do you think American soccer, the level of American soccer, compares to the level of play in Europe?
You know, it's pretty good. We have some young stars playing at some really big teams in the world right now. You know, I would say that in every league, it's kind of like our Major League Baseball, right? There's a Yankees and a Boston, right? And then and a Dodgers maybe now. But after that, you know, it's pretty even. And so, whereas we don't have any teams equivalent to the Yankees or Bostons or Real Madrids or Chelseas. We're very competitive with all the other major professional leagues there at mid-level table, and you know, they spend a lot of money, and we spend, you know, between $20 and $30 million a team, and they're spending, you know, sometimes $250 million on one player. So it'll take a little time, but it's getting there. And rumor has it, Messi's coming here in 2 years.
Well, you know, we've had Beckham come over and Rooney's come over and played. Some of the great players have come over here. It's usually at the end of their careers, though. Do you think we'll get to a point where some of these these really fantastic, the best of the best, will come over to American play in the prime of their careers?
Again, that's going to be a couple years, but what we are starting to do is getting some of the best at the start of their careers. So we are starting to get some people that are coming early on in their careers to make their mark here, and it goes with great scouting, great identification. So we haven't been able to compete with the $250 million player quite yet, but you know, we're finding them at $7, $10, and $20 million on their way up, and developing them. And so hopefully we'll be an exporter of that, and then as soon as we are financially stable, we'll be able to keep them.
I really do. I think that's a game changer when you get somebody that even a casual sports fan probably knows Messi, right? You get somebody in that level that comes over and plays in this country, you can't help but pay attention, I think.
Yeah, and a guy like Messi, I mean, it's not like a great player. I mean, we're talking about arguably the best, right? He gets put in, it's a Gretzky conversation, it's a LeBron, it's a Jordan, it's a Magic conversation. So it'll be special.
Yeah. Hey, you cultivated a reputation for leadership when you played. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you did to be a leader, and how you maybe changed or worked on changing the locker room and what was taking place on the field to improve your team and your teammates.
Well, I think my leadership evolved as I grew as a player. You know, I was very competitive, right? And I think that rubs off on people. And when you try to win all the time, and you can create where sometimes the practice is the hardest day of the week, it prepares people for that game day. So I was always, you know, lead by example, worked hard. I'd like to think I was an unselfish player, a well-rounded player, supportive player of my teammates, and I think that goes a long way when your other teammates know that you really care about them. And then in situations like not everybody likes each other, and I was always a player that could bring different people to the table to get along. And you know, having everyone rowing in the same direction is really important. And I think that's what leaders do. They set an example, and obviously, you know, you look at Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Well, I think Bill Belichick's a great coach, but he wasn't a great coach in Cleveland. But you know, in New England, Tom Brady got everyone to listen to Bill Belichick, right? And then now we have the Belichick way. So I think good leaders, you know, get everyone going the right direction. And then I think as I got older, you know, I became a better teacher, and a support for young players, and really understanding the little things it takes to become professional. And it's a fine line of being good and playing 15 years or playing 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm. With your leadership skills, Tony, have you been lobbied to become a coach or run a front office of a professional soccer organization?
You know, I've been approached a number of times to coach at different levels and to get back in the game. And, you know, I decided when I retired, you know, as a player, you know, no one could argue with my 100-yard speed. No one could argue with my goals or wins. You know, I always worried as a coach, and you see this in football now, is like I wasn't going to be judged on my actual intellectual ability or my ability. And coaching is so much about relationships and social capital. So as a black man, I was a little bit worried that I wasn't going to be given the fair chance. And I worked really hard, and I considered myself one of the top, experts of the game on the field, and philosophically and psychologically off the field, and helping that. So I think it would have been hard for me to go in there and listen to things that I didn't necessarily believe in. And so I decided to move away and work in a fashion where I could make decisions what were best with kids. So I still get the itch, and I'm involved in some ways. I'm on the MLS DEI committee. I've scouted for the national team, and I'm not going to say never, because I think I'm building something pretty special, and there'll be a time when it's ready for me to move on, and soccer will never leave me.
Do you have any relationship with Minnesota United? Having somebody of your caliber, with your experience right under their nose, I would think that they'd probably want to involve you in some capacity.
Well, I have some friends that work there, and like my high school teammate is there in charge of the soccer and is working with the team now, and another one is the scout. And our partnership has mainly been around our philanthropic efforts. So I'm trying to focus on what I do really well right now, and what I do really well right now is I work with kids and I help the community. And as I do with every professional sports, I'm trying to hold them accountable in what their commitment is to the community. I'm starting to work more at the league level, supporting some DEI initiatives, supporting young players as well as that. But again, if I did go back into the game full time, I would consider a role. And I know Kobe Jones recently had a new role in LA in helping community growth, involvement, and things like that. So there'd be interest. I think it's challenging for them. They're a young team and trying to figure out who they are, what their brand is, and so when the time's right, I'm sure something will happen.
Soccer, unfortunately, has had a rather long and sometimes ugly history with racism. And you yourself, I know, have been on the receiving ends of some pretty brutal racist incidents during your playing career, and probably most notably in Europe, but I'm sure some of it happened in this country as well. You've become a really prominent voice to try to fight racism in soccer. Can you talk a little bit about that effort?
Well, early on in my career, I just wanted, if we're going to make, the sport in America is the only place in the world where low economic kids don't play, right? It's a rich kid sport in America. As we want it to be more diverse, we have to improve the culture. So when you give a scholarship to 10 Latino kids or Somali kids or African American kids, they're going to have a good experience. So we started building curriculum just based on discriminatory practices within the sport of soccer, and we're working with some of the leagues now to implement that across the country. Really being a voice of that we do better when we're all involved. It's been challenging. I think the incidents in Minnesota the last couple of years with George Floyd has sparked a lot of attention to Minnesota. It's also reprioritized for the public work that we've been doing for a long time, and we're ready to share it and move on and help make sports as a whole a better environment for everybody.
There was big news that came out this week that U.S. Soccer has agreed to pay the men's team and the women's team equally. This has been a contentious issue for a long time. It's created a lot of controversy, and the women have been very vocal advocates of this. So it's a bit of a landmark agreement. What do you think the agreement means for the sport of soccer, and does this have an opportunity to impact society in maybe even a more profound way?
Well, I think it's a put up or shut up statement, and we look at how this country was built. And the men in this case had to concede a lot. And they realized that they were in a position that they were in because, we've created sports in America for men. Of course, the marketing and sponsorship is higher because we've been investing in it for 100 years. If we ever want there to be a balance, we have to invest in prioritizing women's sports and opportunity. And the men were willing to, I think, make some concessions to ensure that the women had, an equal piece of the pie. And, the challenge will go out, right? The NBA payroll is pretty big, right? And so if every NBA team, put $5 million aside, and every player, and the average salary is about $10 million there. If the average player took a $500,000 pay cut, which they would still be doing pretty good, you know, you could have a WNBA team where the average salary would be $500,000. Still $9 million less, but it would be a real investment in women's sports, and it would be something sustainable. It would give young women and girls something to look up to as far as being a professional athlete, and there would be, you know, a monetary reward at the end of it as well.
The World Cup will be held in Qatar this year, which has come with its own controversy. You know, Qatar is not exactly known as a leader in human rights, right? How do you feel about FIFA's decision to hold the World Cup in Qatar, and is that going to pose any problems for the game, do you think, when they take place later on this year?
Well, I think if we could have a do-over, I think they would have made different decisions. I mean, from my understanding, there were bribes involved, and admittedly, and came out after the fact, and they just decided not to turn back. So you hate to have something that was reward someone that got things illegitimately. There's also been issues about slave labor and building the stadiums. There's also been issues on, most recently, about, you know, allowing LGBTQ fans inside the country. So I think if they could do it over, they would. I think right now, knowing that it's going to be there, our job is how do we hold them accountable, and how do we let them know that doing things the right way can be a really good thing for your community and country. And so I think the rest of the world needs to go there and support the game in a truly culturally responsive way, so that the rest of the world sees, like, this is how we do stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's also going to be hot there.
It's going to be hot.
Really, really hot.
It's going to be hot, yes.
I'd love to talk about some of your community work, which is legendary in this market. You created the Sanneh Foundation in 2003 while you were still playing. And here we are now, almost 20 years later, and the work that you've done in the community is really, it's been remarkable. What was the motivation for you to want to give back to your hometown, even while you were still playing?
You know, I think this is just how I was raised, and people said, like, your hometown. There's a reason why I came back here, because it's home. And I think I had the support system with mentors and my parents and my mom that let me be who I am. But I also know that there's a lot of kids that don't have those opportunities. And, you know, America is a place where anybody can find success. But the statistics are what they are. So you're not likely if you're born in some areas. You're not likely if you're a certain color. You know, my goal is to make sure that we all have those opportunities, we all have those mentors. You know, the more kids that are successful, it saves us money in the economy, less people go to jail, less government subsidies. I want a balanced playing field. And at the end of the day, when we do better, we do better. So the community well-being, I grew up in an area where, you know, you helped your neighbor. And, you know, one thing I learned when I went to visit my dad's family in Africa is you would run down the street, every single neighbor had permission to spank you, and every single neighbor protected you and hugged you. But they did it for your well-being. And we need to get back to that, where we all want to make sure everybody's okay.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the specific initiatives of the Sanneh Foundation?
Yeah, we have really four major business units, and the largest one is our Dreamline program, which we put mentors in the school system, and we're funded through the Department of Ed right now. And we're trying to be really entrepreneurial and efficient. You know, there's not a lot of cash out there right now, so we want to be efficient. So we've doubled it as a pathway program, so you can come and work. Currently we have a master's partnership with St. Mary's, and in summer you get paid to go to summer school, and in 24 months you can get your master's degree and your teacher license. So we're trying to develop the future workforce and support teachers and students in the school system now. In the summertime, when we're not in school, we run free sports camps for over 8,000 kids. We'll hire 100+ kids to be the coaches. So if you're 5 to 12, you go to camp for free Monday through Thursday. If you're 14 to 18, you'll get paid to coach Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday, we'll we'll go and we'll visit different corporate settings to learn about job training and do leadership development. We also have the Conway Community Center, which we just did a $12 million redevelopment. And most recently, since COVID, we started to serve food because that was the community need. And I think we served a little over 3 million pounds of food last year and have a lot of partnerships. So those are some of the big things we do.
Well, I know some young people who have personally been impacted by the work that you've done in your foundation. So I know it's making a difference in the city of St. Paul. You just recently as well opened up a 130,000 square foot dome. You told me a moment ago that you've taken it down for the summer. But what will that dome allow kids on the east side of St. Paul to do?
Well, first of all, we have 300,000 square feet of turfed area, 130,000 domed area in the winter. You know, most kids don't play on a team that could afford to rent a dome for $400, $500 an hour. You know, our dome is open to the public. We always have space where the community can use it. Seniors walk during the day. It really adds a first-class facility on the east side of St. Paul where people without maybe the economic means to go in domes have access to healthy activities during the winter. And people are really happy about it. And you know, I'm learning that I didn't know that flag football was so big. That's one of the things I'm learning. I'm also learning that the 18 to 24-year-old, which had organized activities in high school, don't anymore. And whether they're in college or whether they just went and got a job, they're looking for somewhere to come and be men or be women and just play. And you know, you look at all the mental health struggles we have in our community. We still need to get together with people and just enjoy life. And so that's making that community healthier.
Right. Tony, you work with low-income, diverse, immigrant youth every day. I mean, that's really what the foundation is about. What are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges they're facing right now?
Well, I think some of the biggest challenges they're facing is some that we all face, right? Uncertainty. You know, COVID's come and gone, inflation is high, you know, where are they going to get food from? You know, I think with recent police activities in over the country, I think people are scared. We have a great partnership with the St. Paul Police, by the way, and their pre-cadets come and work with our staff. But I think people are scared when they see some of the things out there in the community. I think our country is really torn right now, and so it's almost like if you're not with me, you're against me. Instead of just, you know, when you look at Jerusalem and you have 3 different religions living harmoniously together. So I think they're scared and they're worried and it's uncertain for the future, what holds for them. But I also think the young people are having a voice and they're starting to realize that they're needing to use their voice.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned George Floyd, and you know, the Twin Cities has really been ground zero of the worldwide racial justice movement that was really precipitated by the murder of George Floyd. It's been almost exactly 2 years since he was killed. In those 2 years, have you seen any appreciable changes? Are we moving in the right direction?
You know, that's hard to say. And I think the trouble is the challenge is we're probably going to go backwards before we go forwards. So what level of commitment do we have for change when we're willing to go backwards? Because some things we're going to notice that we didn't notice before, and then that's going to become an issue. But if we really believe in the plan and invest in it, and I think we have a community that's committed to investing in change. You know, one example is just with us with the St. Paul Police, right? They have their cadets working in youth development organizations before they join the police academy, right? And that is just going to develop relationships in the community. You know, I think it's challenging for the police department because, you know, they're having problem finding staff. And the public sentiment is not great for police. So whereas before they were our protectors, everyone's looking at them. And there's a lot of good police people doing a lot of great work in protecting our community. So it's going to take a lot of us coming together, trusting each other, building that trust up again, and working on a long-term plan. But I believe it's gotten better because I believe we have a community committed to getting better. You
know, this is a community, Tony, that you know,
is known for philanthropy. It's known having a lot of nonprofit organizations doing great work. We've got every professional team imaginable is here in the Twin Cities that are involved in the community. Do you find that to be beneficial to your efforts, or is there a certain level of competition for the dollars to help support the work that you're doing?
I think you can't have it both ways. I think the Twin Cities is a philanthropic place. At the same time, I think, you get some check the box donations, and I think, some organizations still support who they know, right? And that's social capital, and that's the same system that's been here for hundreds of years. As we get bigger, I'm sure there's small organizations that say that about us. I think what's important is that we continue to support good, meaningful programming, and we invest in innovation in the nonprofit space. Too often the nonprofits are expected to work not like other businesses, and you have to invest in innovation, in change, to get different outcomes. And the community changes over time. So we've been on the beneficial side of that, and we've been on the opposite side of that. My job is to make sure that as an organization, we're ready to step up to the community needs. We work hard, we respect who we're working with, and we never give up.
Yeah. Well, I've not had the pleasure of attending one of your galas yet, but I've been told it's one of the best in the Twin Cities.
We know how to have fun for a good time. Yes.
And raise a few dollars.
And raise a few dollars.
So last question, Tony, we're just about out of time. What's next?
I think what's next is just getting better. Creating more partnerships. We're not going anywhere, so I guess we're trying to get people to instill their trust, come and see what we're doing. But we want to get better, and we want the community to believe in us, trust us, and the next time something happens, we're happy to answer that call.
Well, Tony, you are helping the community get better, and thank you. Particularly as a resident of St. Paul, I'm grateful for all the work that your foundation has done.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on Behind the Game. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching Behind the Game. We'll see you again next month.